Friends, I have a very special guest here in the studio, composer and co-curator of GroundSwell and curator for Wednesday night's event, Gordon Fitzell. I almost did it. It's just because we just talked about it. Gordon Fitzell. He is here to talk about electric guitar quartet instruments of happiness set to share their joy with Winnipeg audiences this Wednesday night at the West End Cultural Centre. Friend, welcome to the studio.
Thanks so much, Sarah Jo. It's a pleasure to be here.
I needed to turn on your microphone. There you go. It's a pleasure to have you. I mean, we're friends, so it's nice. I'm too comfortable. That's why. It's just I'm forgetting to do things. So, Gordon, tell us first a little bit about your role with GroundSwell as a co-curator and just how the season gets shaped.
Well, as some people will know, there are multiple instead of just one co-curators. There are four of us, and we typically have a guest curator as well. So one of the great things about GroundSwell is there's a great deal of variety, and with each of the curators, Jim Hiscott, Diana McIntosh, Michael Matthews, and myself, we each share some aesthetic elements, but are really quite different in a whole bunch of ways. And so we get together and we discuss which of those areas could cohabitate for a year. And we all exercise our will and dive into our networks and see what we can cook up for each year. And we try to have both consistency and diversity. And for example, this year we've had the Penderecki String Quartet was our season opener. That was a great concert.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm.
And a whole bunch of co-productions as well. And Michael Matthews, who, as you know, lives part-time in Berlin, he got to know one of Berlin's top new music groups, Ensemble Mosaic. And they did a fantastic concert, one of my favorites in Winnipeg over the recent years. And my concert's coming up in a couple of days, and Jim Hiscott's concert, Monde, is indeed worldly and large and expansive in all sorts of ways, and, come to think of it, features the illustrious Sarah Jo Kirsch.
Oh my gosh, how coincidental. Anyway, let's talk about
along with many others as well.
Well, and it's such a diverse season, and I think that is what is one of the greatest things about GroundSwell is that you go twice and you will never hear the same thing, and nor will you experience the same aesthetic. And I think that's what's so great about having the panel of co-curators and having such a great rooted system here in Winnipeg and in Canada and beyond. But let's talk about Wednesday's installment, your contribution to the season, featuring this very unique ensemble. So how did you get to know, like, did you and Tim Brady cross paths at some point?
Yeah, we've crossed paths many times over the years. I mean, our country is geographically vast, but yes. We artists cross paths fairly frequently, and in fact, the closest we work together is he performs on an album of my music that was recorded by the Ensemble Contemporain de Montréal a few years ago. So he plays electric guitar on one track on that album. And that's, I think, when we first started discussing this idea, because a few of you out there might know of Tim Brady since he is a force of nature. And one of his recent projects is this Instruments of Happiness electric guitar quartet. And so they are debuting their very first CD and combining it with this cross-Canada tour.
Right. Well, Instruments of Happiness for Tim, I mean, the quartet is one contingent of a larger whole. So there's also a 20 guitar orchestra and then 100 guitar, like, community fed ensemble as well.
Scale your happiness.
There's, yes. I know, right? So, I mean, Tim is a bit of a fanatic of this instrument. He's a composer of not just works for electric guitar. I mean, he writes chamber works, orchestral works. He's dabbled in opera. I mean, I've been reading a little bit, but what is it about the electric guitar that has enchanted him so to make something great out of this novelty?
Well, I'm not sure if I can speak for Tim, but my guess is, and my feeling is that I was thinking about this just the other day, that the electric guitar maybe is at a lucky point in history right now because it's equally at home in a classical realm, in many ways, I was mentioning how we had the Penderecki string quartet on some months ago, and now we have another quartet
of strings,
which will be not only plucked but bowed and massaged and tickled in all sorts of different ways. But at the same time, I think they could easily pull out some Jimi Hendrix voodoo and jazz and pop and electronica, and just everything can relate to the electric guitar. And actually, which is not a bad segue to the pieces, because although I don't know all of them, because most of them are literally brand new, from what I've heard and from what I understand, each one is really quite unique and takes us in a different direction. Some touching on minimalism, some touching on more classical elements, some touching on more rock and rolly overdriven elements, some touching on noisy elements, beats, some, as I was mentioning earlier, sort of floating and hovering in the ether with very, very slow moving, tranquil clouds.
Beautiful. In the studio right now, Gordon Fitzell, our co-curator and composer, featured on a work of yours being featured on Wednesday night's program, featuring Instruments of Happiness, Tim Brady's brainchild, this great electric guitar quartet. I've posted a little soupçon of their works from earlier on in their career, from 2014. But for Wednesday night's program, this kind of, balancing in the ether to the rock and rolly stuff. Why do you think an audience would benefit from hearing this diversity of sound from a group of instruments that's perhaps, the luxury that we have with electric guitar is that we can distort, and it is expected. So, what is beneficial for a classical audience listener to come and see Wednesday night?
Well, I think the electric guitar holds this place where it's both ubiquitous and, within this context, a little bit eclectic. So it can go in any direction, and I think people will be taken in some directions that they hadn't otherwise conceived possible with this instrument. In the hands of these masterful players, it is so sweet and sensual, and with the flick of a button, it can go very powerful, assertive, aggressive. And it will go all of those ways and many more.
At the West End Cultural Centre, 8 p.m. Wednesday night, March 29th, 586 Ellis Avenue. For more info on this installment of GroundSwell's 16-17 season Instruments of Happiness, head to gswell.ca, or of course you can go to our website, Classic 107, for more info. Gordon, come by anytime. Really, please.
Thanks so much, Sarah Jo. It was a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you, and we will definitely see you on Wednesday night. We're going to go to a short break here in the Diamond Lane and come back with more great music. Stay tuned.